Celia works at the On Sport Veterinary Institute, and this is also something slightly different from what we've been talking about. Celia is involved in both diagnosis and research on avian influenza. You emphasized when we had a little bit of a chat earlier on that this is not just diagnosis, but it's also research. And you are one of the few institutes, probably in Africa. Maybe you're going to tell me you're the only one in which you are trying to track the changes in these viruses. You've had a lot of experience in South Africa with avian influenza. What are you actually doing on this? What sort of what is the process? What are you trying to find out, and what have been the results from that?
Well, traditionally, influenza is a disease of ostriches in South Africa, but we've had one outbreak in chickens. So our molecular-based work at Onderstepoort focuses on molecular characterization of these viruses. We're monitoring them to see whether they have the potential to mutate to highly pathogenic forms, and also to track the origins of the viruses by examining their nucleic acid sequences, and also to monitor them for any potential reassortments that may occur.
And what have you found so far? First of all, you have a history of being able to identify viruses that have been brought in from Europe, I understand.
Yes, our research has indicated that our South African strains of influenza have in fact been introduced recently from Northern Europe. So we're monitoring the situation in Northern Europe very carefully, and we will definitely be very alarmed if H5N1 becomes established in any of the populations that we know migrate annually to South Africa each year. And furthermore, we know that our highly pathogenic ostrich H5 virus from the outbreak that occurred in 2004 mutated from a low pathogenic form. And we also know that the H6N2 chicken virus that from an outbreak that started in 2002 was actually produced by a reassortment of two ostrich viruses.
So ostriches play a rather important role in South Africa, which may not be representative of certain other countries in the region? Yes,
that's probably because it's a very intensive farming system in South Africa, and it's quite a good source of income for our economy. But they are very good sentinels for influenza viruses in South Africa, but it's quite unfair, I think, to just treat them as that. We really need to identify how these viruses are getting into South Africa.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because you, first of all, I wanted to talk about the research side, but on the surveillance side, you have a very active surveillance program looking for both on the bird side, looking at what you and your partners on what bird movements there are and what the likely chances of virus coming in, but also on the virus itself, right? You're going out and actively looking for potential incursions.
Well, active surveillance is done for all poultry twice a year. That's ostriches and chickens, both commercial and rural. That's the task of the state.
I'm amazed at that. You told me that. So you go out and do a sero-survey on all poultry twice a year?
Yeah, I think it's most of the commercial operations and a statistical number of backyard flocks.
Okay. And who do you do all this in? I mean, what sort of numbers of samples do you actually go through?
Oh, thousands and thousands. But the work is not only done by OVI. It's done by provincial laboratories also. There are at least 3 other large provincial laboratories, and the serological diagnosis is split between these 3.
And this is just for avian flu or for various things?
Yeah, at the moment we are concerned about avian flu, so we are targeting the bird flu tests.
I mean, that is an amazing amount of work that would be hard to be reproducible elsewhere. What sort of, do you also do that type of work for other countries in the region?
For serological tests, yes. I think we do offer, we are doing some for some of our neighbors.
For the SADC
for the SADC countries, yeah. And then the question regarding active surveillance, we have a national program whereby we are sampling and testing the local waterfowl, those are the resident ducks and geese, and also targeting some of the migrant species. And there we're fortunate to have the support of the large ornithological society in South Africa, because these people were very concerned that these wild birds would become targets of hunters or farmers should they be carriers of H5N1. So they've taken a very active role in assisting us with our surveillance activities.
Yes, that's quite important. You've got these, you were saying, the wing shooters club, which are people that just go out and shoot ducks, is it? And,
for fun.
Or for fun. And the ostrich industry and the poultry industry. Do they, I mean, they provide samples. Do they also provide money into your system to do some of this testing?
No, all our testing is funded by the National Department of Agriculture.
Okay. Now, going back to the birds, what are my understanding is you've got sort of two different levels of risk. You've got the risk of certain bird species that might bring it in, and then other bird species that might move it around within southern Africa. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, we think that the virus is being brought into South Africa with pelagic migrants. Those are the shorebirds, the little waders that you would see on the beach and along dams. And once they get into South Africa, the local ducks and geese pick it up. We've isolated a number of viruses from our local ducks and geese. We know that they move extensively throughout the southern African region. They do not move very far north. So they are a local reservoir. And these are the birds that come into contact with the ostriches on the lucerne pastures each winter. And we think that is where the contact is, where the disease spills over from wildlife into poultry.
What about other possible mechanisms for spread in South Africa in terms of, we've been hearing about carcasses and meat and poultry products and these sort of things. Is this something that you're looking at and part of the surveillance system?
Illegal import and smuggling is definitely a concern for us. The Department of Agriculture has quite a rigorous testing scheme for any illegal imports, but obviously no borders in Africa are completely foolproof, and we do know that there is smuggling of exotic birds that occurs.
Okay. Now tell me, you mentioned this rather interesting, the Percy Fitzpatrick Ornithological Institute in Cape Town. What do they do, and how does your program fit into with their work?
We have recently entered a collaboration. They have a large department that does prediction and risk modeling for, or they have the capacity to do spatial analysis of water birds in South Africa. So they are going to assist us in setting up a prediction and risk model for influenza in South Africa, monitoring the distribution of birds, the species that could be carrying influenza viruses, and sampling them at regular intervals so that we can build up a model for our country. What
relevance would that capacity that they and you have be to other countries, East Africa and West Africa? Is there something that could be shared, and how their expertise could be extended to these other regions?
Well, it's actually South Africa, Mozambique, Zaire and Botswana that are in this particular project.
Okay.
But I think as a model for other countries, I think it has a lot of value.
Okay. Now tell me one thing that I'm fascinated by. Why have you not had avian flu in South Africa yet?
We have had avian flu in South Africa.
Okay. Why have you not had H5N1?
My personal opinion is that the virus did not become established in populations that were migrating our way. It broke out in Europe, I think, at the beginning of this year only, or rather in Turkey in October of last year. But I think Africa is quite unique. We're not the same as Europe. We don't have as much surface water. Our climate is a lot hotter and drier. In South Africa, at least, we have quite harsh UV. And the factors that influence a virus to be able to survive in an environment and to get into poultry is, I think, something that needs a lot of more attention. But we are expecting H5N1 in South Africa. We're not being complacent about that.
You're expecting it in the next European winter when the birds start moving again?
Well, the birds start moving in a couple of months' time. They usually move down here around August, September, so we will be monitoring them. But like I say, I will only be concerned when the viruses become established in those populations in Northern Europe, and at the moment there's no indication that they've done so.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Celia. Thank you.